Muhammad and I were there in '86. And when I left to help Minister Farrakhan rebuild the nation in '77, we hadn't been together in a long time. And his wife and Layla was there, and we would greet each other. So this man walked up to Dr. Sharif, and he said, "Dr. Sharif, I want to publish a book on prayer." And he said the name of the book is 2001 Steps to Make Salah. And so Dr. Sharif looked at him, and he said, "Brother, that's why nobody's praying." And so he made prayer so complicated. Wait a minute. It was 2001 steps to make prayer. And prayer is simple. The worship is simple. It's rocket science. Any Muslim that wants to teach you how to pray, and he goes through all of this, you must put the hands exactly right here. Not on the hand, but right here. And you must hold them up here over your heart, like this. And he goes through, and somebody said, "Well, I hold it here." He said, "Well, no, I keep mine at the side, at my side." See, they make prayer complicated. Prayer is not complicated.
That's right.
And some people, it's like my generation with computers. When computers first came out, it was kind of the fear of the computer. But once you got locked in on it and said, just pushing a button, and going back and forth, then you break that. And it's the same thing with making prayer. Now, let me try to go to my subject, okay?
Yes, sir.
I was talking about history and the importance of history. When I got to Ghana, there was a sign called a Genome. I wish I had one. I don't know if I have anything on the table back there with a Genome. It looks like two inverted crescents. And it means, except God. And what it means, literally, nothing happens except by the will of God in the language they speak called Tree in Ghana. Anybody here from Africa? Ghana, anywhere? Okay. And it was the most popular symbol because the Akans are high on symbols. And their symbols, see, people who come and look at that African ritual stuff and so forth. I ran into that in Savannah, Georgia. In the church, I went on the tour, the Black Tour of Savannah. Fascinating history of the slaves in Savannah. You get to the church, the First Baptist Church. It's the First or Second Baptist Church with an underground railroad. Anybody here from Savannah? Underground railroad existed. The tour guide was a Christian preacher from Trinidad. And he was saying the slaves built this church. He said, and when they built the pews, they left their African symbols on it. Okay, see how? And so I get around there and I'm looking at the pew. I said, wow. And I couldn't. Now I don't read Arabic, but there's certain things in Arabic. You know, this and that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I kept looking at it. I couldn't figure it out. So I have a son, my 16-year-old son.
Yeah.
I called him. I said, "Your hair, does that look like Arabic to you?" He bent down. I said, "Yeah, Dad." He said, "Bismillah." He traced it. And so the slaves that built it, they knew that the white man didn't understand Arabic, so they carved it in the side of the pew in his church. And then when I was in Bahia in Brazil, we went to the church in Brazil, and a man told me, he said, "You a Muslim?" He said, "You should, when you go to Bahia, go to these churches because the slaves built it. If you go in these churches in Bahia, and I pray a lot that you be able to travel to Brazil because the history of Islam in Brazil is unbelievable. The revolts in 1885, all of the slave revolts in Brazil, or 90% of them were led by Muslims."
That's right.
And so I went to Bahia. I flew to Salvador. We flew there. I went to the church. The church was built just like a mosque. Even where the Catholic priest delivers his sermon, it looks like a minbar in the mosque. And they faced all of the churches towards the east because the slaves built it, which is a testimony that the slaves were Muslims.
Yes, sir.
So, and I'm saying that because sometimes you go to places and you see the Africans and even some Muslims. Remember, there's nothing written in Islam that culture is not forbidden. You know, they say, "Oh, no, you shouldn't have pictures of anything or animals." I go to Iran. I was in Iran. All of those beautiful peacock paintings on the wall. And they say, "Oh, you shouldn't dance with music." When I was in Saudi, they definitely had a drum with an African beat, and they were holding up doing a sword dance. So people get you confused and off track.
Right.
And as long as there's nothing in your cultural expression that is against the faith.
Come on.
So among the Akans, and I'm going to try to move fast. Now, a lot of you are from New York. New York, we do everything fast.
Yes,
We
sir.
walk fast, we move
All
fast.
right.
The only city in the world where brothers dress up their suit and tie and put on sneakers so they can make a quick getaway. So I'm gonna talk fast, okay? So this is the Sankofa bird. And to me, it's one of the greatest symbols to teach history. Because the Sankofa bird says, here's a bird with its body, and I always ask children, what do you see? They say, well, I see a bird, and he's reaching over his head or something. And his body is going this way, but his head is reaching over the back.
Right.
I mean, children can describe things. I said, what does it mean to you? He said, I have no idea. I said, the Akan means that in life, in order to go forward, you must know your roots or your beginning. So, and that's what has been the greatest weakness of black people in America. When I heard Islam, immediately, now Malcolm was a bookman, he never came to Boston, and I got brothers here to testify, he always got a book before. And he gave us the desire to read. I wasn't reading nothing. You know, in the white world, you know how they meet each other? Especially among the politicians and people have areas of influence. They say, what are you reading? That's what they say. They say, what are you reading?
Right.
When they run into a Negro, he ain't reading nothing but the lotto numbers that he's printing out. But this is the way they endear the culture of reading.
Right.
They ask you, what are you reading? What are you going to read? If you get the New York Times book review on Sunday in the Time, they say, what are they reading for the fall or the winter?
Yeah.
The winter books are out and so forth. Because they read to enhance their knowledge and in order to guide them in life. That's what it's about. So this bird represents going in one direction and picking up or going back to get an egg, which is its origin in life. So in order to move forward in life, you have to know your roots. Ancestry by these Mormons is unbelievable. My daughter worked in the National Archives when she was at Howard University, and she found the roots of our family. And the white man records. I went to Louisiana in the backwoods because we were trying to look for these people who were still held in slavery. And they have in their archives there, they'll have a white man, the slave that he had children by. You would think he just had a baby and threw him back. They recorded it. That's how Liberia was set up. Liberia was set up by the Recolonization Society for the white folks who had women or babies through black women who raped our women.
Right.
They don't use that term.
Come on.
They had babies, but there was some compassion to try to look out for those babies and send them somewhere, and that's really the origin of how Liberia started.
Yes, sir.
Roberts Field in Liberia. If I got the Liberians in the audience, it was named after the son, they said, of one of the presidents of the United States,
yes,
who he had through one of his slave women. So you have to know your roots. That's why people say, I'm not interested in ancestry. We got separated. I met a brother today coming out of the hotel, and I thank Allah. He's in the Gullah Geechee culture, and he has a place. He moved from Detroit. He was a member in the Nation of Islam. He joined, I think he said, in 1967. And he was telling me about what they're doing down there. And then he told me something that I read. Brother Imam Abdul Malik, you'll appreciate this. He said that, he showed me the pictures that I have. He said that this was our last retreat at the end of every April. He said this ceremony is called Shah. And many of you who are Muslim may remember when you were in the church, some of you may still be there. You got dual citizenship in the church and so many of you remember in the church that you used to do the shout.
Yeah.
You walk around in a circle and you shout. And the origin of that, and you can read this for yourself, the miracle of that internet. All you got to do is get your iPad out and Google a book called Servants of Allah by Sylvia Doof. And in there she has a chapter. She said the Muslim slaves, and there were millions of them that the white man never told you about. He didn't tell you that y'all came. He told you he found you in the jungle. He didn't say high civilization, that y'all had built civilization. We conquered you in West Africa and brought you in slavery. And most Negroes who say, I ain't lost nothing in Africa, I don't need to go to Africa, and I thank those good white folks that found me and brought me into American slavery. Now there's Negroes that still think like that because they are void of their roots or their history. They just don't know it. So in this particular book, she talks about the slaves that came. And if you're a good researcher, you can write this down, or if they make a recording of this. There's a book produced by Yale University. I think I read I thought it was 50 copies they produced, but I think it was like 200 copies. So it's very difficult to get it new. But they took 12 years to produce it. And it's called The Atlas of the Transatlantic Slave Trade. And it talks about where the slaves came from. And in there they have a poster of a Muslim. They never said, they said he was converted from his religion in Africa, but by his name it was a corruption of Muhammad. So there were many Muslims who came in slavery, and one of the things she wrote, she said the Muslims could practice. Oh, I wish I had the time to talk about that. The sea islands off the coast were the best place to grow indigo and cotton and especially rice. White people didn't know how to cultivate rice. So they wanted the slaves from the Senegambia.
Right.
That's why you call the people from South Carolina Geechees rice eaters.
Right.
Because they were the ones that grew the rice for white folks, and white folks couldn't stay on the outer islands because they were hot. There were mosquitoes and malaria. So what they did is they put the slaves out there to cultivate the rice, but what happened as a result of that, they were able to retain their African tradition. They were Muslims, they would pray. If you see Daughters of the Dust, when they went down to the ocean in the morning, and they were bound, the white man said they got some kind of ritual. They do early in the morning and they be bound and so forth, but they were Muslims, praying towards the direction that they knew the sun rose. And so he said, so Sylvia writes, they could believe, they were believers. They could practice their prayers because they knew them. Beautiful writing about one of the slave masters who was literate. This is really not my subject, but I'm going to work on it. But he was literate, and he saw that his slave was writing something that he looked at and he thought it was Arabic. When you get these books, you can read all of this. And so he thought that the slave was writing like a diary or a journal of what was happening in slavery. So he took it to someone who understood Arabic, and they looked at it. This is not Arabic. I can't read it. So he kept it up until 1937. And a pastor or one of these missionaries, he gave it to him because he was going to Africa. He said, try to find out what this is. He went to Nigeria. And he gave it to somebody and said, can you read this Arabic? And the Nigerian took it and looked at it. He said, it's not Arabic, it's Hausa. The languages of the Muslims in Nigeria. And he said, well, what does it say? He said, well, it tells you how to wash. Because the slave was smart enough to know that we won't lose all of that. There were slaves that would write down what they remembered of the Quran. But he knew that the slave would lose their ability to make wudu. So he wrote it down so that they could remember it and retain it. These are fascinating stories. But I'm saying that because it is the new dawah. The dias, as my brother said, if I said it right, the callers. The way you call today, we called it fishing. And we would go in the street and get brothers and sisters. We haven't been fishing like we did when I came in the mosque. I mean, it was like it was on everybody. And when you had a captain like Shaw, he would ask you at that door when you came in, where's your guest, brother? With 1 million people in the street, you can't find one, you know? And he would send us back. And we'd go out there with our little Listerine, tell the brother to gargle so he wouldn't smell like alcohol, you know, and try to clean him up a little so that we could get in the mosque and hear Malcolm preach. And no, everybody wanted to be there, but if we didn't have no guests, that's how we had an attendance of 600 and 700 and 800 people on a Sunday. Because we did fishing, we went after our people. But there's a new form of fishing today, it's dawah. And when you go to a man and you tell him, like Malcolm told Alex Haley, you probably came from a Muslim family. Alex Haley rejected that. Absolutely, he didn't come from no Muslim family. They would rather say I was a heathen in Africa than say I was a Muslim. But then Alex Haley went to research. He went to his roots. And when he found his roots, he found that his family came from a little village in the Gambia called Jufri, and the whole village is Muslim. So therefore, she said you could practice everything. You could practice your prayer. And charity or zakat was the giving to the people who were poor, sharing what you had. But the thing that they couldn't do as slaves was to make Hajj. So what the slaves did, they had enough knowledge of what Hajj was about. So they set up and they used a tree stump in the middle of the church. And if you've ever been on Umrah or Hajj, if you can't get in to kiss the black stone, you pass it and say, Allahu Akbar.
Yeah.
And you keep going around. And so they would go around in the center of the church, have this tree stump, and they would shout, whatever they shouted. And it ended up being in the Christian church. So this is the beauty of our faith. Now, our faith is in trouble today. You say, well, Islam is not in trouble. Islam is in trouble because Islam has caused the world a problem that they don't know how to handle. And that's what it is. They don't know how to handle Muslims. They thought that after they had conquered the Arab world, and they thought that after they infused socialism, and because the Arabs were not looking for to become socialists or to leave their faith, because their faith is tied to their culture. Why do you think that in that world, as these people, the Palestinians, fought, and then a group emerged in the Palestinians that were Muslims, the Pakistanis and others, in Egypt, that is in shambles right now. I'm going to go to the map in a minute and show you this. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that small map for a minute, the brother and sister who set it up. But I want to show you this because the Muslim world is in trouble. The Muslim world has a problem. Let me just do this. The Muslim world is in trouble, and the impact of the trouble in the Muslim world has affected every corner of this planet. You know, I thought about Azim, the comedian, the Muslim comedian from Pakistan who lives in Chicago. I think his name is Azam. Maybe Abdul Malik, you may know him. He works with the other brother, the Muslim brother, the African-American Muslim brother. He made a joke one day. He said when the shoot was going on and the sniper in Washington, which was really a tragedy.
Yes, sir.
And I looked at a beautiful picture on my wall of the Million Man March. And I looked at the picture, and there was John Allen Muhammad in the picture. Wow. You know, he was in the nation, but how he was messed up was the war.
That's right.
When he went to that war, I mean, you look at him today, they're killing each other and so forth.
Yes.
But he made this comment. He said that when I heard that shooting, and the MO of the shooter was typically a white boy. And he said, when they said, we found the DC sniper, and the DC sniper's name is John Allen. He said, oh, praise to Allah, it's not a Muslim. And then the man continued, John Allen Muhammad. So he said, oh my God, just like what happened yesterday in Los Angeles. See, I know Muslims, you may not say it anymore, let me say it for you, it's all in their brain. They said, this is another Muslim out there. And when they named an Italian name out of southern New Jersey, they took a slide of relief, you know what I'm saying? Even went and make a prayer, oh, thank you. Because there's suffering in the world, and it's real. It's not no artificial thing. Yesterday, I was at that mosque with Nasser Ahmed, and I tell you the truth, I was so proud of him. I mean, I gave him one of, this is a Gaddafi salute. This is like a Gaddafi salute. I said, Allahu Akbar, because he was direct. He talked about the struggle of the black man. He was not ashamed to mention the name of his command. One block. That's right. Okay, how many have never been to that mosque? Okay, one block. Okay, you should go there for Juma prayer sometime.
Yes, sir.
You should go there. And then I asked Abdullah, I said, does he teach like this all the time? Or was he teaching, because I was sitting in that audience. He said, brother, he teaches like this all the time. I haven't heard him teach in 30 years. He used to be in my ministry class that Imam Muhammad set up in Chicago. I haven't heard him in 30 years. He's a doctor, a surgeon. What do you call it? A dentist, yeah, but he's an oral surgeon. And he taught a lecture yesterday. I just had the brother to make 15 copies. We're going to make it. How many can you get them?
They're complete, sir.
They're complete. Thank you, Brother Lau. That's my kind of brother. The words of Denzel Washington, my man. But I want to make them available for the Muslims, because his words about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, his words about economics, which we're moving into now. I mean, I tell you the truth, I was touched. When I called the minister this morning, I said, brother minister, and the minister knows him very well. I said, you got to hear this. I'm going to send you the CD. It's a CD, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to send you the CD on Minister Akbar. But I want to thank my brother. I really want to thank you because I didn't know which mosque I was going to go to. His brother in Fort Lauderdale. I was waiting to see if Imam Abdul Malik was going to do a football somewhere. And I'm trying to make it my business on a Friday to go to the mosque. Now, I mean, I know Allah has blessed me. I have no doubt about that because I can go to any Muslim community in America, including the Shia. When I came from Iran, after I spoke in Iran, they invited me to one of their mosques. It was buried outside of St. Louis, and when I drove up on that property, I had to turn my head. Unbelievable. But I can go among all of them. I go to the Ahmadiyas, and I can go because I'm not in a shell. They don't believe right. They don't know Master Akbar Muhammad. You understand? You know, Allah will burn all of them. See, if that's your thinking,
Come on.
and we in trouble, then you only exacerbate the trouble.
That's right.
But these are your Muslim brothers, and believe me, all of them are suffering in one area or another, being that the world is in the shape that it's in. So I want to move on this. In the Caribbean, and I want to talk about the Caribbean because in here, many of the brothers and sisters have parents from the Caribbean.
Yes, sir.
And if God has given you this honor and the power of Islam in your life,
Yes, sir.
and you're not victimized by some of the things in the street, I hope not as a Muslim,
Right.
such as alcohol, you know, trying to find some ayat that justifies you drinking some wine, okay? So,
Come on now.
if you're not victimized by drugs, and I got an Islamic scholar in here, on anything, see it says intoxicants, but it means anything that veils the mind.
Right.
Go not in prayer while intoxicated, okay? So there's a lot of things that veil your mind. You got Muslims that during Ramadan, when the iftar comes, instead of trying to get a drink of water in the date or some camel milk, they get a cigarette. They rush outside. You're victimized by that.
Yes, sir.
You know, Malcolm used to describe, and my brothers will bear witness, when you see a smoker, what you got is fire on one end and a fool on the other. All of the information that the white man gives you about how smoking gives you cancer, and you're supposed to be an intelligent group of people, how can you sit there and puff on it? So we don't even smoke cigarettes. If you follow the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you look for a little crack in the door. But what I'm saying to you is that the world of Islam is challenged. But the Muslims have to find a path of unity of how they can get together. The brothers in Imam Muhammad's community, those are my brothers. We grew up together. We're not a gang or a cult.
Right.
I don't belong to a cult. I belong to a nation. You may see yourself as a cult. I was in a mosque, I don't even want to name it in here, because you may pinpoint who it is. And I had my books spread out on the table. Because I got a library of 3,500 books or more. And I got all of those books. And so what I determined, and I got this from a Jew, and the book that the Jew said, you might as well fly first class. Because when you drop dead, your children will use your money and they will fly first class. So what I decided is that I got all of these books. And I said, and I love to travel. And any brother in this country will tell you when I go to a mosque, I don't ask them for a dime. I don't ask them to pay my hotel. I don't ask them to get my airline ticket. I pay my way if I want to come there and speak. I don't ask them for no love offering. I do not do it. I learned that from Minister Farrakhan. When we were rebuilding, and he was going to those cities, he didn't have nobody giving him money. We stole his tapes at a table.
That's right.
It was Lukman, Kenny Gamble, that got us what we call some gigs, where the people wanted to pay the minister to come and speak. We didn't go nowhere, and I will not lower my Islamic work to how much money you got. How much money can you pay me to come and speak? I'm not going to do it. So, this city, the brother went to the table, and he said, are these books approved by Chicago? And I waited until we were eating dinner. I didn't even look at it. He was standing in the back.
Come on.
I said, one of the brothers went to my book table and asked were these books approved by Chicago. I said, if I go in Barnes and Noble, they still exist. Waters is gone.
Right.
I said, and I see a couple of books that I want because I love reading. Which I get my cell phone out and say, could I have the minister's office, please? I'm trying to buy 3 books. I want to know if the minister approved me buying them. So I'm narrow and stupid.
Come on, wake us up, Muhammad. Wake us up.
Give me a break.
Wake us up.
In the words of Bill Clinton, give me a break. You're a grown man. Now, you're not rooted in your Islam if you read one book and you go on somewhere else.
Come on now.
So this is knowledge. The prophet said, peace be upon him, a man or woman who goes out in the search of knowledge is in the way of Allah until they return.
Yes, sir.
Seek ye knowledge, even if it be in Chin or China.
Yes, sir.
So you have to get knowledge. You know, I know some of the Muslims don't like this statement when I make it because they feel that as Muslims, that there is only one book we need, and it's the Quran. But there's a Chinese proverb that says, oh God, save me from the man of one book. Even a Muslim that reads his Quran regularly, he got to go to the Hadith sometime. He got to get a tafsir on certain ayats in the Quran to give him a flavor of it, so he can enhance his understanding. I read Maududi when I was sitting in the mosque yesterday, and I love Maududi. He's the one that wrote Towards Understanding Islam, but he did a volume of books, tafsirs on the Quran. And I just happened to open it to the 62nd surah of the Quran. And that's Juma, or congregation, it has. And they wrote like a piece on how the first Juma prayer took place in Medina and the importance of the prayer. They were writing on how Bilal, the muezzin who called the prayer, but he was writing on the 62nd surah of the Quran, but his tafsir was in depth that gave you more insight to things that the Quran talks about but doesn't go into the detail. So you have to read the hadith or another book on it by the scholars. But if you say, I don't read nothing, you sound like one of those brothers on the corner. If you're a Christian in here, bear with me. You know, you go to him on the corner, he's up there with his microphone, Jesus saved. Jesus saved. And I go to ask him a question about something in David or something. Or he looks at me, Jesus saved. The only thing you need is Jesus. I said, I just want you to talk about this particular chapter in the Holy Quran. Jesus saved. See? So that's how ignorant some people are.
Right.
The scholars of religion. I got a book up here. If I brought it up here, I hope I did. It's called Islam and Communism. And I don't have it up here, but I'll show it to you in the back. And the man goes into why a Muslim cannot be a communist. And there are Muslims who practice Marxism and socialism, but they're not communists. Because the ultimate end of communism is atheists. They believe in dialectic materialism. They believe in the material word. And Imam Abdul Malik, who wrote this book, it probably came from one of his speeches, was Abdullah Nasif in Saudi Arabia. He wrote the book, but it is good. And I showed the minister, I was with the minister, and I'm getting to my subject, okay? It's time for me to close out when I get it, okay? But the minister, when I was up there with him last week at the farm, and as the brother would say, we were just kicking and talking about a lot of things. I said, Brother Minister, when I was in Iraq in 1983, Saddam Hussein gave us, the group of us who were there, this little book. And it's called Our History, Heritage, and Religion. Now, most in the Muslim world, they don't like Saddam Hussein. They said he was a socialist, he wasn't religious, and this and that. And they may say what they want about him. But on that Eid day that they hung him, he said, and they let his enemies in with their cell phones to take pictures of him. But they thought that he would be whining like a baby and pleading for his life. He said his shahada, and he pointed to them, he said, you go to hell. And they hung him.
That's what he did.
And when I read this, I had greater respect. He said that he talks about the spiritual nature of man, and you cannot discard religion and your belief system. This is Saddam Hussein, who they would just try to dismiss. You know, Muammar Gaddafi, when he wrote his last will, and he talked about the protection of the women and the children, and he wrote his whole name. I didn't know his name was that long. And I prayed with him. He led us in prayer with a group of us. And so I know that the spiritual quality, they said that Astaghfirullah, he's not a good Muslim, and those that took over, the ones that took over and killed Muammar Gaddafi, all of them have been pushed out of power.
Think over that.
Another group in the country is in complete chaos. It is a failed state as I stand right here. And there are Muslims there who today are shedding tears and wish they had Muammar Gaddafi back. You could go to Baghdad right now in the heart of Iraq, and you could ask the Muslims, did you like Saddam Hussein? They said, I didn't like him, but I wish he was back right now. Because I could send my children to school. I could go to the mosque at night and pray. I could walk the streets of Baghdad, and I was safe. But they have none of that. Every day in the news, 50, 60, 75, 25 people. This warfare between the Shia and the Sunnis in Iraq. The country is in shambles. I can go through the Muslim world. Tunisia is in shambles. I'll start with Tunisia. It's in shambles right now because the groups that are fighting for a secular government and the groups that want a government based on the Quran. I can go through, let me just do this for a minute. Bear with me. Do I have a walking mic here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to do this for a minute. This is a part of my subject. And the brothers and sisters who are from Haiti, I want to get to Haiti because I had 2 great trips to Haiti. Okay, let me do this. I think that this map, I like this map over here only because of the color and the fact that I'm going to make it available. These maps come from Africa. And in your home, you should have a map of Africa. I'm trying to move that picture of, what's that little boy from Canada's name? That little white boy. What's his name? Justin Bieber. I go, yeah, your children got Justin Bieber. That same space you got that big poster of Justin Bieber. Why don't you put a map on Africa and see if they can learn something? Okay, here is Tunisia. Tunisia's in shambles. Algeria is a little stable, but they went through it. The Muslims were elected in 1992. A Muslim government was about to take power. There was a military coup with America behind it, and thank you. And they took the Muslims out of power. Bouteflika is doing all right now, but there's an internal dynamic in Algeria. This is the first African country I visited in 1976. Libya, complete chaos. The Prime Minister of Libya went to London and asked them to help him because they are down from 1.3 million barrels of oil a day to 200,000. And they can't even pay their staff. So Libya right here. Then you got Egypt. You know Egypt is in complete chaos. Okay? And it won't survive. Last week they said we're going to release Hosni Mubarak from jail. He's 85 years old, and I know he spent many nights in jail crying about his beloved Egypt and the Muslim Brotherhood called the Ikhwan Muslimin. And right before all this chaos came, because they knew it was coming, they wrote a book on the Muslim Brotherhood. And I used this with the members of the Nation of Islam because Hassan Banna is founded in 1928. He said that if you're going to go and do dawah, fishing as we know it, then you have to be able to take care of yourself. So he recommended that get an education, become a teacher, have a dexterity, a skill. So when you go into the villages in the Delta to bring people who have drifted away from their faith back to their faith, that you can take care of yourself instead of begging the people. Begging the people to give you some money, some charity to help take care of you and pay your rent and all of that. But if you got a skill, you can use that skill and earn money and then still be committed to that work. But the Muslim Brotherhood called the Ikhwan Muslimin, and when they started, his desire was sincere. And if you look at Egypt today, most of your lawyers, doctors, and whatnot came through the experience of the Muslim Brotherhood. One of the architects who helped the homes of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, a man named Ibrahim Izzadin, who died recently in the United Arab Emirates, was a great advisor to Sheikh Zayed in the Arab Emirates, and he was an excellent brother, but he had to flee from Egypt in 1949 because Gamal Nasser, the leader of Egypt, looked at the Muslim Brotherhood as enemies of his regime. So you look at the chaos here. Here's Syria, up here. Syria is in chaos, complete chaos. chaos. So the chaos in the Muslim world has definitely affected us. Then when you move down in Africa, when I happened to be in this country of Mali, and we had a meeting with the president 6 months after Gaddafi was killed, and President Touré told me in his office that the fall of Gaddafi is going to affect all of this area called the Sahel. And because there was weapons and money. Mali was the first victim of it. He was overthrown and put out of power. And they moved down into Mali. And all of those that say they're destroying the libraries in Timbuktu, they couldn't be good Muslims if they're destroying the libraries that have the history of Islam in West Africa. So all of this is the chaos that's going on in the Muslim world. Saudi Arabia is struggling now. Don't think it's not. It's the home of the two holy spots. But they're struggling because there's a new young group of Saudis that know that they got to make a fundamental change. And that fundamental change, do you have a laser pointer? My laser pointer needs a battery. But the fundamental change that they're going to have to implement in Saudi, just like the women who went driving last week, is the change is that they're going to have to loosen their relationship with the United States of America and become independent. They're going to have to do it. It's hard for them to do it because in their tradition, when Ibn Saud, the father of the kingdom, in 1930, it became the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Before that, it was called the Hejaz. And when he became the king and the guardian of the two sacred spots, his family began to run it. But America developed the strongest relationship with them over oil, helped them. It was the Palestinians, some Egyptians, and the Syrians who came in. And then they brought in the Sudanese because of their tremendous command of the Arabic language. They helped the Saudis while they had to send their children off to school to learn. But this country right now, with 20 million people, is in serious difficulty because of their relationship with the United States of America. Now I want to get into this because I have to. We have. So I want to talk about, and then I'm going to move. I'm talking about this country right here. The map is kind of bad. This country right here. My map is a little better, but I'm sorry. Shrink it a little, maybe I'll get a better view. The country of Nigeria. Now, all across West Africa, many of the Haitians who were well educated, the doctors and those who could teach, they went to Africa, many of them, which you don't hear that much about. But the Haitians went to Africa because in Africa now there's 54 countries. Half of them, 27 of them speak French. And there was a demand for learned French people, and Haiti supplied a tremendous amount because they couldn't earn a decent living in Haiti, and they had this outlet to go to Africa. But a lot of them got to Africa and they developed the knowledge of the struggle of the African continent, and what they learned in Africa, many of them brought it back to Haiti to help the Haitian people in their struggle. In this country of Nigeria, thank you, brother. When you see the hand, he's going to use the hand to help me. Nigeria is the largest populated country on the African continent. Most people in the West say 150 million people. I want you to think about that. But the people say it's 160 to 175 million people in that small piece of land. I mean, it's a huge piece, but it's small for 150 million people. There's a tremendous struggle going on now in Nigeria, but it's pitched to us in the West, these Muslim crazy fundamentalists just killing Christians. This is how the enemy of Islam divides you against Muslims. They shape how you view Muslims. They shape how you handle Muslims. And you say, oh, that's them crazy Muslims. I ain't thinking about those niggas. They're crazy as hell. Talking about this Allah stuff and Muhammad and all of that. Talking about they don't eat pork and all of that. See? So they picture us and they use Nigeria right now with a group called Boko Haram. And in Hausa, the language that's dominated by the Muslims there, it means Western knowledge is haram or forbidden. And that's crazy as hell. What they're talking about is Western culture that has subsumed most of them and even pulled them out of their faith trying to be Western. In America, we describe it like this. And the Holy Quran bears us witness in the 20th chapter of Taha. See, they wanted to get a place close to Pharaoh. They said, what will our reward be? A place close to you. Most Negroes seek to please white folks. And some of you are closet Uncle Toms. You act tough with us, but when you get on that job, you be smiling, trying to please white folks, doing everything you can to get their approval. Now, this is not a racist lecture, you know. This is the truth about black people in America. It is in you from the days of slavery. You want to get close to them. You know, you let them come in and say, ask you what kind of weekend that you have, and say to the minute you get some and all of that, you go to smiling. You say, you should say, ask your mother that question. Don't come in here in the morning and ask me what I did. That's my business. But you're so busy trying to get up to them. And once you break that stranglehold on you, then you can go for yourself. But they got you in their grip. So they shape how you view Africa. They shape how you view Islam today. Look at those young brothers they arrested here in Florida. And they said that they were influenced by Al-Qaeda. And all you had to do is read all of the newspapers in the country. So one of them asked the agent, buy me a pair of shoes. All he wanted was a pair of boots. Then when they called them black, do y'all remember this? You in Florida? They called them black Muslims at first. Then they found out they wasn't even Muslim. Now where's their case at today? They took it out of the national news and buried it because they sent plants into the mosque. I know there's a plant in here tonight to see whether Akbar's going to talk about something that's radical and whatnot. I hope you'll make a tape. Because if you make a tape, give the agent a tape when he goes out, because he's too dumb to remember what I'm talking about right now. So go to your boss, give him the tape, and say, this is what Akbar's talking about. I'm not doing anything illegal unless you want to violate your own laws. I have the freedom to talk about issues, just as the Tea Party and other right-wing people who hate Barack put him in a black face, call him a monkey, throw bananas at him. Okay? I don't see them arresting those people for doing that. So therefore they say because it's freedom of speech in America. So if you exercise your freedom of speech, this is one thing about the masjids and some of the foreign Muslims. They are strong brothers. That's what I appreciated about yesterday. He made no apologies. He said this is not about color. He said it's a culture, it's a mindset. But some of them can't even preach a decent football. I'll never forget when the problem took place in Iran. And Jimmy Carter, decent man, sent those helicopters in to free the hostages. And they ran into one of those storms that come up in the Middle East called sandstorms. And they are terrible. And all of those helicopters crashed in the desert. And it was a sign from Allah. Trust me, it was a sign. There was another one. The country of Senegal, right here. Can you put the print on Senegal? Senegal, during the first Gulf War, the Bushes went around to get people to join them in the war against Saddam Hussein. Senegal told them they would send 103 or 120 Senegalese black soldiers. And Senegalese people, 90% of them are Muslims. Whether they're Marees or Tajanians or Lions, but they're Muslims. They got on that plane, and that plane crashed on its way to Iraq, and every one of them was killed. But Muslims who are spiritual people who believe in Allah and the signs of Allah, they knew that Allah's hand was in that for those soldiers that died on their way to a war to fight for the Western world to destroy a Muslim nation. So this is this war that's in the Middle East. And the Muslims are at war with themselves. They don't know how to trust each other. Look at this Alaki case in Yemen and the killing of them, the drones. And they killed someone the other day, and they said it was with a drone. But they didn't show you the destruction of the village and the people that were killed. This is what's going on in this war in the Muslim world. And here we are in the West trying to be Muslim. You know, we're not engaged. We don't have arms and weapons. You know, I'm going to Guyana, inshallah, on Monday, because I went down there to preach. I didn't get one dime. The brother didn't take care of my ticket to get there and gave me a hotel. I didn't ask for no honorarium from the schools that I spoke in or the crowds. I went down there to do a good work as I saw it as a Muslim. to help to enhance their understanding of the Nation of Islam and the religion of Islam. And they arrested me and called me a drug pusher and a terrorist.
Right.
And they spread it all over the world. People were calling me from everywhere. And so I got a history, 53 years in the Nation of Islam, and people know that I don't push drugs, I fight against drugs. They know I'm not a terrorist, I don't carry weapons, I'm not looking to blow nothing up. But the point is that this is how they fight against your faith.
Yes, sir.
And most people don't know the faith. And that's why you got to bring people. And when you come to the mosque, it's not that we want you to join and become an MGT tomorrow morning or put on a bow tie and become an FOI. But the minister has opened up the MGT and the FOI class. But how many people are you going out to get? It's a manhood training class. And our people got serious problems and issues.
Yes, sir.
Dysfunctional family, unemployed, drugs and alcohol, wife beaters, children abusers. They got problems. And all they want is some wisdom or some knowledge that you can share with them that will help them in their struggle with life in this society. And so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it like this to us. He said, my duty is only to teach a clear message. And so that's your duty. Give them a clear message. Don't try to proselytize them and you got to do this, shave all that hair off, get rid of your locks and, put on a bow tie. That's not the way you entice them. Show them the beauty of your faith, what you believe in. Show them the sincerity of your heart, your prayers to Allah, your struggle to live a righteous life. Show them that.
Yes, sir.
That's enough. And then they'll come with you and they'll help you in what you endeavor to do. Let me finish this, okay? And I want to say this because in my 2 trips to Haiti, and I'm saying this for the Haitian brothers and sisters who are from Haiti or descendants of Haiti, born here, Haiti has suffered. I want to come back to this. Can you get the Caribbean? Haiti has suffered. And this new law, and the reason I'm going into this, because when I read the New York Times and then went on the internet and saw all of these articles on how the Dominican, now don't get Dominica and the Dominican Republic confused. Right. In this part of the world, you know it because you're right at the base of the Caribbean. But when I talk in New York and Chicago, they're confused over Dominica and the Dominican Republic. Okay? So that goes to show you, if you know your roots now, okay, I'm expecting that all teachers step back to the table and get one of these Sankofa birds. If you knew your roots and you studied Christopher Columbus, who found Hispaniola, one big island, okay? Here it is right here. You want to put this is it. But what the root of it shows you how people don't forget. The root of it is from 1815 to 1822, Haiti conquered the Dominican Republic.
Right.
How many never knew that? And the Haitians ruled.
That's right.
And so when the Dominican Republic began to grow crops and whatnot, and there always is this challenge. The challenge is the Dominican Republic said we got 10.5 million people. Now most people from the Caribbean don't realize how big these countries are. 10.5 million people. Jamaica has 2.5. Anybody here from Jamaica or family from Jamaica? Is it 2.5 million? 3 million in Jamaica. 3 million. They got 10 million in the Dominican Republic. And they always, when you read it now for years, and I think I know something about geography. I'm kind of a geography snob. People may talk about the New York public school system, and I'm a victim of it. But in New York, they did teach history and geography. You know, when the brothers were ready to go to Vietnam in the early 60s, the brothers, they were drafted. They used to say, Vietnam, what is that? And the other one said, well, where is it? Because they didn't know the world. They didn't know anything about it. So here is Haiti. The Spanish annexed it to the French. The French took it over. It was the biggest colony for slaves in the Western Hemisphere.
Yes, sir.
Haiti. They used to grow rice in there, the sugar plantation. But the Haitians would cross over, which had right there, see that border? And go into the Dominican Republic to work. Maybe 1.5 million to 2 million born in the Dominican Republic speak Spanish. Some of them don't even speak Creole.
Right.
They don't speak it. They speak Spanish. Thank you. This is the line right here. Port-au-Prince is down there. You know where Port-au-Prince is? Okay. Okay.
I'm learning, sir.
Okay, but this is the problem. So when the Times came out last week, and I'm gonna use this as I segue to a close on this subject tonight. When you read that, how did you feel? Now, as a person who traveled to that area of the world, and for years, even though I had touched just about every Caribbean island, I didn't go to Haiti. And Haitians used to say, how come you never went to Haiti? Because inside of me, there was no desire to go on how the white man pictured Haiti. Everybody got AIDS. The land has been stripped. You know, the water is no good. The people are this and that. I just had no mind. And they talked about Papa Doc.
Yes, sir.
What is it? Tom? What is it? Okay, they talked about that. I just had no desire to go ahead. So, is the mic on?
He's checking it back, sir.
Okay. I had no desire to go. I told them. I said, I don't know why, but I was victimized. The only thing I knew is they were making baseballs, and their cadavers were found all over the world. When I was in Libya, on my second trip to Libya, in 1983, I went to the Guyunis University Medical School. Gaddafi had developed a fabulous medical school, and they took us through, and all the cadavers were laid out. And I asked the man, because all of them were black. And so I asked them, well, why is all these black bodies, where are they from? They say, well, Haiti is the big seller of cadavers. Oh, is that what you call them? Yeah. And he said, Haiti sells them. Why does Haiti sell them? Because there's no family connection and people die and you can get money for a dead body. And medical schools throughout the world had bodies from Haiti. So what I knew about Haiti, they made the best baseballs. Did y'all know that? Haiti was the place where they made all of the baseballs. That's right. And so we didn't have a desire, but once I went there, trust me, I saw Africa. I saw the richness, the color. I went to Cape Haitian because I had to see where Dessalines had built that fortress because they knew that the French would come back one way or another. And when I went there, I saw these mint-conditioned cannons. And I said, well, how did the Haitians get these? They said they took them from the French. Napoleon sent 60,000 soldiers because he was going to take it. And them Haitians beat their behind and sent them home and took all of their cannons and put them in Cape Haiti. So here's what I feel, and I'm saying that in Miami, you have an opportunity. You're right on the cusp of the Caribbean. There's people from everywhere in the Caribbean here. You can stay in this mosque here, you know, and this is where you are, or you can branch out.
Come on.
You can make an impact. While Allah has given you life and time, you can make your prayers, fast during Ramadan, make your zakat, get some money, make Umrah, Hajj, okay, and pronounce your belief, or you can impact the society with what God has given you. And that's what I'm saying. When I went to Haiti, and the Haitian people are very spiritual. And Macandel and Bookman, you know the story of Bookman. He always carried a book. What was the book? Holy Quran. He's the one that started the revolution. Him and Macandel, both of them were Muslims. So Islam is in the blood of the Haitians. And it's almost like in New York, I'm going to use this example, you may not like it, but I'm going to use it anyway. I grew up in the era of heroin, and people used heroin.
Yes, sir.
But they also had children. The mother was using it and the father was using it. It was in the system of the child. And when that child reached a certain age and got their first hit of heroin, they said it was something like I was looking for all of my life. Well, Islam is in your system like that. Islam is in your blood because millions of the slaves came from Africa as Muslim. It was taken from them in the Western Hemisphere. So that's why when they hear Islam, it's like something they've been looking for all of their life. I don't care how messed up the mosque is. I don't care what goes on. You don't go out in the street and say, I'm eating me a pork chop. I used to be a Muslim. Islam is in your blood, and you feel it all the time. Even though you're not practicing, you feel it in your blood. So I'm saying this, that if God gives you time, it's like when Minister Farrakhan came to New York. He could have played home base safe. If you play home base safe because you think you're going to strike out, or you're going to hit a fly ball or get tagged out,
then you don't go nowhere. You're afraid to hit. But Minister Farrakhan moved out of that mosque. The city of New York hated us because they said we killed Malcolm. But it didn't stop him. BR, you were right there. You witnessed every bit of it. And he would go any little place that he could get a crowd. But he wasn't going to sit on 116th Street or in the Bronx and wait for Allah to wave a magic wand and one day everybody would be at the door trying to get in the mosque. That's away from reality. The very people who talk about will you set up home and wait for that mystery God to bring you food, clothes, and shelter? Emphatically not. So if God has given you this hour and you got the power of Islam, where you're not victimized of the things of the Western world that drag you into the filth of their world, then you got to use that power to redeem your people. Haiti is beautiful ground for you to go to. When I was there, I went to a little Muslim village. The epic center was west of Port-au-Prince. Is that right? Does anybody know that? Some Haitians in here should help me out on this, right? The epic center at Port-au-Prince is about right here. Was the epic center where the hurricane hit in this direction, or was it in this direction? Near LaGrange, huh? West of Port-au-Prince. We went to that area, and we found a few brothers who were trying to practice Islam. They were in the States. They joined the Nation of Islam. They became Muslim. They learned our discipline. And either the enemy deported them, as he does across the Caribbean, and he knows what he's doing, because he wants to make the Caribbean, that's a paradise, a crime-ridden place, and then eventually push black people out of the Caribbean completely. And if they don't push you out, the islands that you're on become worth nothing. But you got the power of Islam on your side. And you ain't got to go down. All you got to do is start teaching. All you got to do is get a few books and learn, and wherever you go, learn the language of the people. Don't go there with the arrogant attitude of the white American. Can you talk English? Talk English so I can understand you. That's the arrogance of America, as if English is the only language. And as your children grow up, teach them to be multilinguals. Okay, you got to do that because it helps them in their thinking. They'll do better in school, because it's the greatest brain exercise that you would have. Now, I'm a one-liner in about 25 languages. I meet a Chinese, I can say ni hao and ni shei shei. Okay, if I meet a Korean, I can say kamsahamnida. Okay, that's right. If I meet a Bangladesh, I can say dondiba. I mean, I just know them. If I meet somebody who's a Hausa, I can say something in Hausa, Nagori, or something. Okay, because I love language. And I got that from reading a book with Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson and W.E.B. Du Bois was two of the greatest minds that we produced. But Paul Robeson could speak 16 languages.
That's right.
So if you help your children in language, as a Muslim, you want to learn Arabic. It's not hard to learn if you put your mind. Why do you want to learn it? Because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad writes to us in Message to the Black Man on page 93 that in order to really understand the Holy Quran, you should understand the Arabic language. That's what he wrote down. And then he said, however, there are two good translations, Maulana Muhammad Ali and Yusuf Ali. Now, let me just say this, and I'm going to close this out, I promise, because I want to announce the table in the back and show you a few historical things. What time is it? It's not bad. 44. Okay. Brevity is not one of my attributes for most Muslims, okay?
You're one of our
I got to tell you this one, and then I'm going to close this out. Fidel Castro came to New York. And Fidel is like really our man. I mean, he loved the minister. We went there, and the protocol told us we have 20 minutes with Commandant. And so we all get jacked up, you know, we're going. Matter of fact, I think I got a picture of the delegation on the table in the back. I got some historical pictures. Brother TJ, do you know if I printed the one with Fidel in the group? I saw it. I don't know if I printed it. But anyway.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we get ready. We're at our hotel. They come and get us. We go down, you know, go downstairs, and it's at the command center, like beautiful building in the heart of Havana. So they said 20 minutes. He gets down there and Fidel starts. Now he can speak English. He used to live on Manhattan Avenue in New York. And he's a lawyer. He went to Havana University. So he started. And then they got into a debate about God and religion. It's heavy. We stayed there 3 hours and 20 minutes. Fidel told, he said, tomorrow I gave a little place for the Muslims to have prayer. And I want you to tour the central Havana. I want you to tour that. He's telling Minister Parker, but he speaks to a translator, a female, and she's good. And then he told his man that night, who met us the next morning, he said, I met a man that was the closest thing to a prophet that I know. Talking about Minister Parker. They had a discussion. I mean, I wish I could have recorded it. And the minister was telling Fidel that people preach Jesus, but I want to see the man that does the work of Jesus. And you do more of the work of Jesus than anyone else. I mean, he was on it. But let me just, we took 2 cases of Qurans to Cuba. Because the next step for Cuba is Islam.
Listen.
That's the next step. We took them in Spanish. I thought I had enough, so they went so quick. So I asked the brother who's the imam there, a black Cuban, I said, how did you hear Islam? He said that Fidel opened up this school called the Schools of America, where they prepare doctors for the world. Remember, Che Guevara was a doctor. And he took off the doctor's jacket and picked up the AK-47 and they had the Cuban Revolution. And then when they put down the AK-47, they put the jacket back on the doctor, and they turn out more doctors than any country in the world with 12 million people. And they ship doctors out to the world.
Right.
And so what happened, I lost that particular point, the Qurans. We got these Spanish Holy Qurans. And it went so fast, it was unbelievable. The brother told me, I said, well, how did you become a Muslim? He said, well, Fidel invites these people to come to medical school from all over the world. And some Muslims came, and they started talking to us about Islam. Now they came to go to medical school, but their faith was on their heart. Can you go back to Africa for a minute, brother? Their faith was on their heart. Thank you. And what happened was that the brothers from the Muslim countries that came to Cuba to go to medical school began to teach Islam. And they began to teach it, and the people began to accept it. Now, there were ambassadors from Muslim countries that came there, but those ambassadors weren't about to teach anybody because they felt that maybe it wasn't diplomatically correct as an ambassador to go to another country and then mingle with the local population and teach them your faith tradition. But let me say this. The Muslims, by the time Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, I feel handicapped because I don't have my laser pointer and I'm so used to it. But by the time the Muslims left, remember Egypt was all Coptic Christians. So the Muslims moved into Egypt. This is in the book called The Preaching of Islam by Arnold. Then the Muslim generals, Nasser Musa Nasser, he was one of the leaders. They crossed Libya, what is Libya today? And they got all the way over here to Morocco, and they encountered a tribe led by a woman. And the Muslim engaged them and said, we're going to conquer you. The lady said, the woman who led the tribe said, if you beat us on the field of battle, we'll join your faith. And the Muslims overcame them, beat them. And in that group was a man named Tariq. Could you pull the map down a little bit so I can see Spain, the bottom part of Spain and Portugal. And Tariq and his army, after they became Muslims, that's why they called them Moors, blacker Moors, okay? They were black people from this area of Africa. Tariq took his army and crossed right here, what you call Gibraltar. The word Gibraltar is a corruption for Mount of Tariq. They crossed and they conquered Spain, and they remained in Spain for 800 years. The other group knew about the gold and mainly the salt in Africa. This is after Islam came. And so they left Saudi, this trading, especially bringing things into Cairo. And they moved out across the desert. And wherever the Muslims went, they were not scholars and learned people, but they had Islam in their heart. You may go to Haiti for business. You may go to see family. But if Islam is in your heart and you know that Islam will help the people in Haiti, then it's an obligation for you to teach. You say, well, I'm not a scholar. I don't know how to teach Islam. Teach what you know. Teach the spirit that is put in your heart. That's all you have to do. So these Muslims left and they crossed this area of Africa. And wherever they found people, they taught. And centuries later, in the country, Mali stretched over this whole area. This whole area was Mali. And by 1434 or 43, it's a senior moment, 34 I believe, a leader emerged named Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa realized that they were Muslims and the faith was in their heart. There were three great civilizations: Mali, Songhai, and the Ghana civilization. That's where Ghana got its name from. It wasn't just this little small country of Ghana right here, but it was a great civilization in Western Africa, mainly animist, but ruled by Muslims. So Mansa Musa wanted to make Hajj. So in 1434, and the date is all just corrected for me, but I think it's 34, some people say 43. He left with elephants, loaded down with gold. You can actually read the amount, okay? And those who know this history, just smile at me and make out you haven't heard it before. But there's a lot of people who haven't heard it, okay? And they left Mali and they went to Cairo. And the writers write how they inflated the Cairo gold market. Then he went to Jeddah, on to Mecca, and made Hajj. And when he got there, he used the power of his money. The gold that he brought to hire people, scholars. Number one, he wanted scholars because his people were in Islam, but they didn't know the faith. They didn't know the practice of the faith. They didn't know certain backgrounds. They didn't know hadith and fiqh and so forth. They didn't know Islamic jurisprudence and so forth. So he brought these scholars back, but he also brought architects so that they could build institutions of learning and build beautiful mosques. And even when I went to Timbuktu, some of those mosques still exist to this very day. And the books there that are in the library. So I'm closing out on this to say, yes, the Muslim world is at war with itself. But that war don't have to be in you. I got supreme wisdom. I got the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I got what Master Farad Muhammad brought to me, and I'm better than all the others. That's the first mistake that you made. See, and if you think like that, you think like the Yahudis, the Jews. They think that they're better than everybody else. They don't see other people as their brothers. We're God's chosen, and we're better than everybody else. See? So what you have to say to yourself, that God has selected me to do a work, and the work is to spread this faith. That's right. And bring this kind of unity. So in America right now, and that's the hope of Minister Farrakhan. Why do you think that he appointed Imam Sultan Muhammad as the Imam of Masjid or Mosque Maryam? He appointed him as an Imam because he wants the members of the nation to learn aspects of the faith that you have to be a Muslim. I want a foreign ministry where I can help before Allah takes me. I know the world very well, and I thank Allah. I'm not saying it in an arrogant way. I've been around the world 3 times. I've been to 144 countries in the world. But what I want to do is not just say, look at what Akbar has been exposed to. I want to share it, groom some young brothers. You know, so that they'll know what a visa and a passport is, that they'll know how to deal with an embassy and to charge the fare and the deputy consulate of the embassy. They'll know systems of governments that exist in the world. That in the Muslim countries, mostly all of their constitutions are based in the Quran. As bad as you may talk about Egypt or Libya, the rulers there, some of the Salafi brothers, their constitution is based on the Quran. It's not based on something they snatched from the West. But what we have to do is the nation of Islam in America, we're in the most powerful country in the world. Best education systems in the world with its schools and its universities and colleges. The leader of the so-called free world is a black man in America that comes from a Muslim family. That Islam that I talked about that's inside of us, that has been dormant, is in him also. There's a book called The Obama Tree, and you can, the family tree, it just came out about 6 months ago, and it goes to his grandfather, I think his great-grandfather, how he became a Muslim. They come from the luau. Pull this up a little. I'm going to close. I promise you I'm going to close after this. I promise. The preachers get 3 closings, okay? So I already took 2. You know, I mean, I love my map. Okay, here's Kenya. Okay, in Kenya, first from Yemen and Oman, the Arabs sailed down the west coast of Africa. And what they did is they began to teach. Again, in the book called The Preaching of Islam, one of the Arabs went into here, Uganda. Can everybody see that map over here? Can you see that map? It's too small. Okay. He went, some of the Arabs, this group would happen to be from Syria. They went into Uganda. They captured a man, took him to Syria, he became a Muslim. Then he left Syria, found his way back to Uganda. The same group came, and then they captured him. And then they found, the Muslim saying is beautifully quoted in the book. I don't have it perfect. He said that when you came into our country and captured us and fought us, why didn't you tell us about Islam? Because he went to Syria and became a Muslim. And so I'm saying that Barack Obama, and the reason that the Hussein is his middle name, and this is why the Shiites, they just love it. They give him a pass on everything, okay? You get that history about Hussein and the Shiites. But his family was Luaus. There's 2 groups in Kenya, the Kikuyus and the Luaus. The Kikuyus always had the upper hand. And the brothers who were with me in the nation in the early days, and you remember 1963 when Jomo Kenyatta was on the front page of the Muhammad Speaks, and he was the new ruler of Kenya. Well, there was a struggle going on. I'm going to try to say this as quick as I can. There was a struggle going on. The struggle was the Luaus didn't have political clout. You may remember a name if you read some history of Tom and Boyd and so forth. You all remember that name? And okay, they were Luaus. So Barack Obama's family, the Kenyans, needed people to run a government. They became independent in 1963, the Mau Mau Wars, which is unbelievable history, but they needed educated people. So Jomo Kenyatta sent some people to the country of Uganda because Milton Obote, who was a Marxist, was the leader of Uganda. This is the person that Idi Amin overthrew. And so then they sent some to Russia. So John F. Kennedy stepped in, got his family to send a plane to bring students from Kenya to America to be educated because this was the budding of the Cold War. And in that group was Barack Obama's father, who wanted to get an education, come back, help Kenya, but also help his particular tribe. And the rest is history. A little white girl from Kansas who wants to click her heel, went to Hawaii, met this young, strong black African. They got married and they produced Barak, which means blessing. It comes from, what is the word in Arabic for blessing, Imam? Barakah. That's where Barak is. Thank you, may Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum.
Brothers and sisters, one more time, let's give Brother Akbar Muhammad another warm round of applause.